Justin and Hilton Seskin, welcome to The Mentor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
And I denote a South African accent there. No, I nearly said accent.
Can't shake it. I've tried since the mid-'80s. I think we got here in 85, lost the accent and then picked it up again.
What about you, Justin? Have you got the South African accent?
Yeah, and I'm embarrassed to say I was born here.
You were born in Australia?
Yeah.
But you got the accent?
Yep.
Dude.
You heard him. You can't shake it.
Yeah. Of course, this is father and son, but it's the son's business we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
I got a funny feeling back in the 80s, you and I might have crossed paths, I'm not sure, but I remember in the 80s, mid-80s, when I was approached by someone with a South African accent. That's all I can remember because it's such a fucking long time ago. I can't really remember the dude.
Did you run?
I didn't run, no. But he talked to me about investing in a business which was going to bring into Australia. I'm pretty sure it was Reebok at the time. I'd never heard of Reebok. I knew what a Reebok was, but I from the South African Reebok, so that's all I knew. But I didn't know. And, of course, in those days I was running around with Slazenger tennis shoes. That's what I would go for a jog in, or maybe something slightly better. And, you know, people didn't actually have running shoes those days, but Reebok was about to hit the shores. And, of course, I just said, no, I'm not interested. I was working at a law firm those days, a firm called Simon Zabowski. Running shoes have taken off big time. Were you around in those days, and do you sort of remember the period when something like Reebok franchise first came to Australia?
Yeah, well, I've got involved because, I was part of Rebel Sport and the growth of Rebel.
When did that kick off, Rebel?
So Rebel kicked off in 85 as literally a warehouse in an outdoorium in Bankstown, and I joined at the end of 86.
So you were born South Africa, obviously, but what's your background prior to that then?
A chartered accountant by background, had been in retail for a couple of years before I left South Africa. And they were looking to try and evolve this business, which was Rebel Warehouse. It was part of, as I said, the big barbecues outdoorium. And I was working for Touche Ross at the time in management consulting and hated every second of it. And I was looking at bringing in actually some sporting goods into the country. And then I actually got to meet the guys who were from Barbecues Galore, Sam Linds. And I got to meet them, and there was a guy, Ian Dresner, who was a shareholder in that business at the time, but it was really a real warehouse. And they asked me to join, and I said, great, as long as I can get some equity at some point and, help make a go of the business. So that's where I got involved. And so from the end of 86, I was involved in really the growth of Rebel.
Wow. What's interesting about that is who would have thought Rebel Warehouse would end up where it is? I think Harvey Norman owns it now.
No, Harvey Norman. So Harvey Norman did own it for a period of time. We did a deal with Jerry, which was a great experience. And
I can imagine it was. As much as I love Jerry and Katie.
I spent 5 years on a board with them, and I did. I really had a great time on that board and with Jerry and Katie. And with the business continued to build. We were listed before they acquired a controlling stake.
A warehouse in Bankstown called Rebel Warehouse turns into the Rebel business today. A guy who thought I'll bring in the Reebok franchise in Australia was a bit of a pioneer, and he was South African, as I recall. And look, every shoe's available here now, and in fact, it's a thing. You've got to have these shoes. I wear them myself. I got to have them. And from very humble beginnings, just catering to a small market, it turned into a massive business, which is it's a good segue into what Justin's doing, because you probably take some solace out of that fact. I mean, here you are, you're punting into a business model. Your model's slightly different, but the product's the same.
Mm-hmm. Modern version of it.
It's modern, upgraded warehouse, but it's online sort of thing. Yeah. But you're pretty much selling the same shit. Because there's no new products.
Literally, some of it is the same shit. There are probably things on there that they sold in
back
the 80s.
85s. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind having a look at some of that stuff. But your old man over here, and I can say that because I'm probably even older, but I'm looking at your dad over here. I mean, the experience of what your dad had, and because he's seen the evolution of this stuff, or the success, probably more importantly, the success is really important to have experienced and seen, which you may have seen it from afar as a kid, but he was sort of in the weeds. He can sort of see the potential failures too. How important is it to you to have someone like your dad? He's got another job somewhere else, but mentoring you, so to speak, through this process? Or do you just say, hey, Dad, I'll take what I want and step aside?
He's smart.
Yeah.
He's smart.
I could say that. We call him a silent advisor, but he's not very silent. We know that. No, I mean I've observed his career, and I think when I was a kid, I used to follow him around the shopping centres into sport, and I think the why I really connected with it was what he was involved in was always what I was interested in. So rebel sport, I was interested in sport when I was a kid, and then
Sport or sporting wear?
Sport. Well, I mean, I played cricket, I played
Right.
soccer, tennis, running, everything,
Yeah.
and always because of that had the access to all the latest and greatest gear. Which
Yeah, but
was,
you would have been the coolest kid at school.
yeah, well, that's what made me a good sportsman. I think it was the good bat, right? It wasn't anything else. And then after that, he went into fashion, and that was at the time when I was starting to open my eyes to fashion. And at the time, I was just really into sports. I was playing soccer, I was playing cricket, I was running, I was playing tennis. So that was the appeal. I mean, obviously, the equipment is part of it. You want the best boots, and you want the best cricket bat, and the newest helmet, or whatever it might be. So that's what attracted to me to that business. And then the next one that he got involved in, which is glue, I was 16 years old and starting to care about fashion and thinking I wanted to look cool or think I look cool. And so what he was doing is almost aligned with what I was interested in at that time. Like if he got into the fashion business when I was 10 years old, I wouldn't have given two shits about it. But because it was cricket bats and soccer balls and all that sort of stuff, I was really interested in what he was doing. I wasn't going to my friends and saying, my dad's a chartered accountant. That's not exciting. That's not cool. But he was involved in the things that were cool and that everybody wanted to get involved in. As I said, everybody wanted the best soccer boots and the best cricket gear. And he was in that space that was super relevant, amongst my friends, at least when I was young. And then as he moved into fashion again, that became super relevant amongst my friends in my age group. And I was in it and I understood it. And I was observing, I guess, him building these businesses around these areas that were so relevant to me at the time.
I'm going to come back to you, Hilton, because I know you want to say something because I can feel it on my left side. But I want to just look at that word relevancy because it's quite a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It actually can form our thinking process.
Mm-hmm.
Relevancy for a young man especially.
Mm-hmm.
Relevant in relation to your cohort of friends. Relevant into a broader group that is, just 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, not just with your friends, but just generally.
Mm-hmm.
How important is the concept of relevance and the feeling of relevance that you're at the cutting edge, so to speak? I don't know if you've ever. This is a bit not psychology, but I'm getting into the sort of really deep into it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think it's that relatability. If he was in the restaurant industry when I was 12 years old, I wouldn't have cared about it because I didn't care about restaurants.
So how do you know you wouldn't have cared about food and become a real foodie?
Well, unlikely as a 12-year-old.
Tell the truth.
What?
How did you become interested in food?
I don't. You're going to take credit for that one. I'm not going to let you.
I love it. Come on. Let's talk about that. Now let's talk about your response. I like the response. I'm not going to let you have that one, Dad.
No, I think it's a relatability. I related to sports. I understand. Another example, if he was in wine industry, there's another one. As a 12-year-old, I wouldn't have cared. It wasn't relevant, it wasn't relatable, and it wasn't something that I would have been interested in that time. So I probably wouldn't have been such an observer of his career and what he'd done if that was the case. But he was always involved in things that were just so relevant to me at that point in time.
Okay, Hilton, were you aware of that?
I probably was indirectly. I mean, my weekends were taken up with sport because he was a keen sportsman.
Yep.
But Saturdays was my day that I went to stores, and I had an assistant who came with me every Saturday because he loved it. For Justin, it was an experience going to see Rebel stores around the country or wherever it is. So that was a great experience for him. And even at the age of 10, he would talk to me about things that made sense. It was like common sense. Justin used to ask me why we don't have a section called Junior Rebel. Like why don't we have something?
Well, here's your marketplace. I mean,
exactly.
The best research you can do.
And we did. We set up a junior section because it became obvious that we needed that. And as I progressed through what I did, as Justin said, he was interested. When I started Glue Store, which was a fashion concept, and it was at a stage where he was 16. Justin always worked while he was at school, and he either worked at the stadium selling pies but when he was old enough, he worked in the glue business. And to his credit, he was our best salesman. He worked in our Chatswood store, and every week his name was number one in terms of most sales. He used to run in the store. So the relatability that he talks about is actually translated into action because he just wanted to be successful in what he was touching and what he was involved in. And, I'm going to take the credit. I was in food. I got involved in food because I'm a crazy man. Okay, so I was involved in setting up Wildfire Restaurant.
Oh, I know the one, yeah.
Okay, so I was one of the partners, and I think since then he suddenly that was in his zone of liking food again.
Well, this is an important question. Don't misinterpret it, please. Were you aware that you're bringing your son through a funnel? I mean, because when I was looking at you then when you were talking about food, there was a wry smile on you, and I saw I got a sense of body language. I reject that proposition from Justin, but
Just because he takes claim for everything, that's why.
Well, that's my question to you. And there's nothing wrong with it because I sort of do it with my four sons in different ways.
I think it happened naturally. I 100% will say that it was unconscious, the behavior, but there was obviously
from your point of view.
From my point of view, but there must have been a subliminal consciousness that was enjoying Justin actually picking up, same as my daughter, picking up the threads of what I was doing and showing interest and being good at it in certain areas. But the important part here is that whatever I did was unconscious to start with, but watching the behavior and the way Justin actually, he latched onto things and, as I said, like became the best salesman, and it showed me that he actually had an interest in these things. And as a father, like that's like, how much more can you want out of a kid to see that number one is they like what you do, number two is they adopting some of what you do, and it's the same sport. Whatever I was good at the same sports that Justin was good at. He was better than me. I'll give him credit for this one in every sport. But, but you live through your kids in a lot of ways. And I didn't push him in sport. He did it naturally. And the same as business. Like I never pushed him, but it was nice to see him come along the road. And
But you don't have to push him, because I think a smart parent doesn't have to push the son or the daughter. Could be just a little nudge. Nudging is quite powerful. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. Are you a product of and a DNA product of your father?
I'll answer.
Is this an external thing you've done yourself?
I might be able to give some insider perspective.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think, as I said, I was always observing, and retail, it almost came naturally to me because of all those years of just being an observer. I'm super competitive. I like to win, but I'm not going to just jump into anything. If I'm a shit swimmer, I'm never going to try to be a good swimmer and try to win competitions in that. I went after school. I did finance and accounting, and then I thought,
same as your dad.
Same, yeah. But again, that was just, I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to do something in business, and I thought that was a good groundwork. So I went and did that. Didn't enjoy it. Didn't go to any class, but I did it. Trying to understand or work out what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be successful. I knew that I wanted to win. So naturally, I looked at, okay, well, what do I think I can be good at? I think I can be good at retail. I understand this, and I think I can excel, and I think I can overachieve.
It was a conscious thought process.
It was almost it was subconscious for a long time, and then it became, this makes sense for me. I get it. I can win in this. I'm going to go for this.
So did you spend any time pursuing your studies?
No. And if I'm honest, I do have a slight regret in not doing that.
I have 4 sons, 3 of whom did commerce degrees at university. One did, in addition, that computational science, only one of which ended up working in an accounting firm, all of whom just did the degree because I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And only one uses it, and he's a partner of a chartered accounting firm sort of thing. But they all followed things that sort of I had influence over them, or they saw me doing as young people. Parents have an incredible amount of, if it's a positive thing, incredible amount of influence over what their sons or daughters do, I think, particularly if they open the pathway for them. And what's interesting about one of my sons, funnily enough, we're going to talk about your business in a second, he actually established a online business called Haggler, Hagler. It didn't work out in the end because he did it probably way ahead of you. It was maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago he did, which was going to people like brands and putting their sale items online, and where you bid, you the buyer, you bid. It was like a bid offer type arrangement, probably a little bit too complex. But he wrote all the software and stuff like that himself because that's his thing, and it folded. But he had a commerce degree as well, but didn't want to follow my footsteps. So it's sort of, I can see some parallels, which is interesting. I hope to say, and I think it's the same in the case of Hilton, that I had a good influence over my kids, probably some bad things too. Probably everything they do that's wrong is probably also influenced by me. But it's interesting the influence a parent has. And you've invited your dad along today. Here he's sitting here opposite you. This is your business, not his business. He's got his own thing going on. You're at JD right now, still there. But it's interesting that you're happy to have your dad here. And by the way, I think it's a great thing. he's not trying to step on your territory in this room, but at the same time, he's there to lean in if you need him. I can see it. And you, on the other hand, you're saying don't fucking lean in too much, and you got the forearm up. But at the same time, you're welcoming him to do that. It's a very interesting dynamic. Like it's rare, to be honest with you. I don't see this very often. It's a rare thing. I mean, I do it myself. I mean, if one of my sons was going to do a podcast with someone and invite him in, I definitely would go. They probably wouldn't invite me because I'm sort of a bit too well known, and they think, oh, fuck that. Everyone's going to want to talk to you all the time. And I would be so conscious that not to talk, to be frank with you. I'd be sort of conscious of that outcome and just really want my kid to be doing it. I think before we start talking about your business, why you went into Dom, we're going to talk about that name, by the way. It's interesting for me to see this going on. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to say that at the outset.
It's nice to hear. Thank you.
So, Justin.
Yep.
You all got the court now, okay? Mm-hmm. Here we go. I'm going to serve up your return. Tell me the transition. You're at Glue, you're wherever. What happened?
Yeah. Okay. So, been in retail for however many years. I mean,
retailing what?
Everything. Fashion, fast fashion, eyewear, everything, all different things in different capacities, in merchandising, in operations, in financial, in commercial roles. So, I think I've got a fairly broad knowledge of the retail industry. I would say that I know what's going on there.
Yep.
Interesting, and I got to be careful with what I say here. I hate shopping centers. He loves shopping centers. My sister loves shopping centers. I can't stand them. But I'm in retail.
I get lost in the car park.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't go to the car park. I park outside because I take
I do
queues,
too.
Yeah.
At Bonner Junction, I park out across the road. It costs me more money, but I park across the road.
So how do we get to this business?
Yeah.
I've been involved in managing a brand as well. It really came from COVID, and it's the cliche now, and I know there's many things that come out of COVID, but that's the truth. We were lucky enough during the first lockdown, we were out of Sydney and we had a bit more time than we normally would, and sitting and thought, okay, well, this is a good time to start.
The two of you?
With the family, actually.
The family,
yeah. Thought this is a good time to start thrashing out some ideas, we've always been too busy, head down, focused on what we're trying to do, but this is some good time.
So you're in the weeds normally?
Yeah.
Now you're stepping back.
Yeah. First time ever. Take a step back, relax, spend a bit of time talking, cooking, doing all these nice things.
With mum and dad and sister?
Yeah. And her husband now. Yeah. And the little dog. Yeah. So we started to just brainstorm some ideas. I had a few things.
Who?
Well, me, and I was bouncing them off him and off my brother-in-law and some other people that we brought in through the phone calls as well. But just thrashing out a few ideas. I had one that was in more of a tech business, a staff benefits thing, and interest. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. And this one, I thought, okay, I understand the challenge that retailers are going to have. I understand the challenges that brand owners are going to have.
What was a challenge?
The challenge, I'll tell you.
The problem.
The problem was how do you manage your inventory, especially in a time like COVID? And I was probably one step away from doomsday prepper. I didn't have tinned food in my cupboard, but I really thought that this is going to be fucked and this is going to be a big mess.
I did too.
Yeah. So I looked at the problem that retailers had. They're going to have all the stock. How are they going to clear the stock without damaging their brand? They're going to want to deal with the problem now, but they're also going to want to come out the end of it with a brand that's got integrity, that's intact, that will flourish afterwards.
How do brands not bastardize their brand by having too much stock? Is that what you're talking about?
It's not necessarily. Well, yes. How do they do that without having too much stock? Exactly. How do they not bastardize their brands by dragging dirt, trying to sell as much as they can?
Yeah. In other words, you come buy 50% discount on shit now, 70% discount now, because we've got to clear the stock.
Correct. And it's also how you do it. If you're doing a big warehouse sale and somebody's spruiking 70% off $10 shoes, that's not good for the brand, right? So I looked at the options that existed in the market in Australia, online, offline, and that really got me thinking, hey, there must be a better way to do this.
So what were the two solutions? What were the offline solutions? Are they the DFOs?
DFOs would be one, and it's a good solution, but it's only accessible to a select set of brands. And I think
also you can't get there. We weren't allowed to leave home.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the case.
Yeah, 100%. But long term, and we were thinking we weren't trying to solve a problem that existed in that point in time. We're trying to identify a problem that we think is going to have longevity.
Ongoing, right?
Yeah, not it wasn't a flash business that was going to come in and out, and as COVID disappeared, the business would disappear. So we really challenged the solutions that existed for brands, online and offline, DFOs, all the online solutions, and what they do and what they don't do for the brands. Funny enough, him and a friend of his were talking about not an outlet business or not a discount business, but a similar retail type business. So I went and spoke to him and I said, hey, this is this idea. And he said, well, actually, I've got something not similar, but something related that he's been talking about with one of his friends. And we sort of came together and started to build out the idea. So we called his friend, who's quite an astute businessman, and I shared the two ideas that I had, and he said the first one, find somebody else, this is a waste of time, this is useless. But the second one, I think there might be something in it. So that we really started to build out in the concept, build out in the idea. And I think why I like his involvement is he's got all that traditional retail experience. This is a modern retail business. It's totally different to anything that existed 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. But those traditional principles are still important. And there's and I think that's a lot of where he adds value. You know, how do we build brands? How do we talk to the customer? How do we understand the customer? How do we bring those traditional retail elements into it? And then where I come in is like, okay, well, I'm going to take those and take it to the next level. Let's look
and
at
modernize it.
And modernize it
To a different audience.
To a different audience, but not just a different audience, because I can ask you, where do you do your shopping now? You don't go to the shopping center. You do your shopping online as well. So
yeah,
yes,
sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like, it depends. If I'm buying a standard pair of, say, Nike shoes that I know, say, Air Pegasus, I know my size, I know I like to run an Air Pegasus, I'll buy them online. Subject to them having the colours I want. That's what I do, and I know I know all the variables. But if I'm trying to find something a little bit different, I probably prefer to go to the store because I want to actually see what it looks like.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
That behavior, I think that's how I'm going to say most of the Gen Z millennials would have behaved 5 years ago. They would have bought the thing online that they knew they wanted online, and they would have done exactly the same. If it was more to browse, they would have browsed in store. But that's shifted. Do you think do you see it shifting for you as well?
If you're talking specifically about shoes,
or anything. I mean, the things that we're buying online now and never would have thought 5 years ago.
Because I don't want to buy anything different to what I've always buy it. So I pretty much know where I get my T-shirts from, where I get my pants from, where I get my shoes from, where I get my suits, ties, jackets, blah, blah, blah. I know exactly. I've got to a stage of my life I don't browse because I don't make any change. I just buy the same shit over and over again because I just don't have to I don't want to have to think about what I'm going to wear. And that includes, casual wear outside of work and stuff like that. So I'm probably slightly different because I've become stuck in my ways. I'm not just wearing something different. But it's interesting that you sat down during the COVID period and sought the counsel of your father and et cetera, but during a period where you actually took a break from what you were doing and you thought about what can I build, what can I create? And you come up with two ideas, one of which someone else was interested in as well. And that gave you encouragement to do it. And you didn't just plan for the COVID period, you planned for the future. I mean, you were addressing the future. And that's really, to me, is really interesting that you would, you're a young man, at that stage you would have been 31, yet you were sort of saying, I'm going to address the future, but I'm going to look at traditional things at work and try and pick out of those traditional things at work things that suit me. That's you in your case, Justin. And I'm going to use my dad, Hilton, as a mentor, because he's been down that track. But then I'm going to add my own sauce to it. And basically you became a cook, which is the reason why you have to thank your dad for that, because he got you interested in food, if you remember. So you're basically cooking up, you're building a recipe. And sometimes we refer to that and we hear it referred to it
in a Thermomix, not over a fire.
Well, yeah, correct. And we continually get told about algorithms. An algorithm is just a recipe. It's another fancy word for a recipe. But you build an algorithm, but based on lots of inputs. And that algorithm gave you an outcome. I want to talk about that algorithm, all the inputs and all the assumptions when we come back. Justin, I use a fancy word, algorithm, but which is just a recipe for what DOM does. Can you explain the business model? What is DOM?
What is the DOM? So it's an acronym. I mean,
tell me what it stands for.
Direct Outlet Mall.
Direct outlet mall.
We don't really use that, but that's really the principles of the business, and that's the core of the business. But we're careful with the words that we use because they do have connotations with both the brands and the customers that we are working to overcome and resolve, but they exist at the moment. So sometimes we fight them, sometimes we don't, sometimes we work around them. I can tell you a funny story about how we got to the name DOM, if you want to hear it.
Yeah. It stands for Direct Outlet Mall.
It stands for Direct Outlet Mall, but when I think I hate giving him credit, but this one was
Him
his
being
idea.
Justin, because you're sitting in a room, people don't know who Justin is. Hilton is, sorry.
So talking about Hilton.
Yep.
It
What did he
pains
do?
me to say he came up with the name Dom, and he called me. I remember it really clearly. And he called me and one of the partners in the business who's very involved, and he said, I've got the name. And we spent weeks and weeks trawling through the internet trying to find names, finding names that had domains available. And he said, I've got it, Dom. And I just said, no fucking way we're naming our business after a condom. Like, that's it. Conversation over.
Condom, Dom being the slang version of condom.
Yeah. I hang up the phone. Half an hour later, I called back. I said, I'm coming back with my tail between my legs, but for all the reasons that I said, I hate the name. I think I actually like it.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, I was looking for a logical solution. So I said, why spend millions of dollars building a brand that people don't understand? Direct outlet mall, you can make a digital outlet mall, you can digital off-price mall, direct off-price mall, whatever you want, but you've got the word, you've got the acronym, use it. Okay, and I said, and it's registerable, so just take it. And as you know, when he rang me and he said, for every reason that I hated it, I actually loved it.
Well, there's something in that, by the way, because it's a strong word, Dom. People asked me many years ago, why did I choose the name Wizard? And because it's a memorable name, it doesn't really matter if people like it or fucking hate it, as long as I remember it, it's irrelevant. There's no point trying to come up with a word that everyone likes, because you know what happens? You'll come up with a sanitized word and no one will really remember it.
Yeah.
Like it can get to that's what the banks do. It can be so sanitized that people never remember what it is. So Dom is a memorable word. It's a strong word. It has connotations. Wizard had connotations. Dom has connotations. You know, all sorts of connotations. I was thinking, to be frank with you, Dom Perignon. So I was thinking, Dom Domino. There used to be an ad on television. Dom. It was about Dom Perignon. So, and the acronym sort of what is the cinnamon acronym? Whatever the fuck it is, DOM stands for something. If someone wants to actually pursue that, so I think it's a good memorable name. No, it's a good name because it's memorable.
Yep.
And it's strong.
And that's exactly why I came around and said I liked it.
So you did the analytics on the mental. You did the mental arithmetic on it and worked it through it, and had to come back with your tail between your legs. Said that old cop is sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have to? What sort of equity did you have to give him for the name?
Nothing.
Nothing. Good man. I love that.
No, he had another name that he wanted to call it that thankfully we didn't go with.
What was that?
That was Millennial Mall. I said, I got to I've got something. If you can spell millennial, we'll use it. And
Totally.
He couldn't, so we didn't.
100%. I love that. Fuck me. Like most people put up words that you can't spell. Like we make an assumption everyone knows how to spell millennial. I mean, is it 2 L's or what? 2 N's? I don't know.
I couldn't even tell you.
Off the top of my head, like I might be able to write it out, but you're right, 100%. And is it dom.com.au?
Thedom.com.
Thedom.com.
Thedom.com. So it's got a ring.
It's got a rhythm
Rolls
on
off
it.
the tongue.
It's got a nice rhythm to it. I like it. It's cool. Cool. Yeah, it's awkward, but therefore it's cool. I think it's probably the way I could summarize it for you. Okay, so now explain the business model.
Okay, the business model. So I think the first problem that we wanted to solve was the brand, the supply problem, which I've kind of spoken a little bit about before. So we wanted to build a solution, and it's going to sound cliche, but coming from brand owners and people that have been brand holders or brand custodians for so long, and it's not just me and him, but all the people, it's me and Hilton, but all the people that we've got involved as well. That's the space that we get, and we wanted to build a solution that works for the brands. We wanted to deeply understand, as I said, what the brands like and don't like about the existing solutions, and let's shape this proposition, shape this business around their needs. It's a solution that allows brands to sell anything that's off price, whether it's promo, whether it's sale or outlet.
What does off price mean?
Off price is anything that's discount, anything that's not full price. So it could have a 10% discount, a 30% discount, or a 90% discount. But we want brands to have control over their destiny. We want this to be an expression of the brands, not an expression of our business. Similar to you go into a shopping center and you walk into whatever store it might be, Calvin Klein, and it feels like Calvin Klein, and it's Calvin Klein's personality and it's their brand and it's their logos and their imagery and their pricing. We wanted to replicate that experience online. So I think simplistically speaking, what we wanted to do, and I think what we've done, is create an online shopping mall where brands hold on to their integrity, they hold on to their identity, and they're in full control of how their brand presents, how their pricing presents, their shipping proposition, everything, how it features on the DOM.
And a brand I would know, for example.
Okay, a brand you would know. So Superga shoes. Do you know it? Do I need to pick again?
Heard of
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Champion.
Champion.
Yeah,
Champion.
Okay.
All right.
Champion, yep.
They would in a DFO outlet store. They curate the range, or they select the range that they want to put on the site. It's their brand imagery. Yeah. So it's their logo, it's their imagery, it's their campaign material. It's all their product imagery. It's all of their product descriptions. It's their pricing, most importantly. They totally control what that customer journey looks like for their brand on our site. So you go into a DFO, into a Champion outlet store, it's that we're trying to replicate that experience online, so the customer feels like they're shopping from the brand, and everything that the customer sees is what the brand wants them to see.
So I can understand this properly. It's not like going into the Rebel store where you've got every brand up sitting alongside each other.
Yeah.
When I go into the dom.com, like a sub-store or a subset of the whole thing, and that's the Champion experience. I get the total experience. I don't see everything line up against each other.
Yeah.
So it's not like sitting me walking into Rebel and seeing a shelf full of shoes.
Well, there's a little bit of both. There's two ways that the customer wants to shop. Some want to shop by brand, and then they come in through that way. And some
so what do you
shop
ask me? Do you ask me, are you looking for brand? I mean, do you prompt me or?
We don't prompt you, but we give you the option to go down both paths on the site. But I think the important thing, and I don't want to mention any specific competitors, but what a lot of brands don't like about the competitors is they take control. They buy the product and then they take control. They control the pricing. They discount the product when and where they feel like. They discount product that brands want them to and don't want them to, and also dictate what that customer proposition is for their brand and on behalf of their brand.
Right. Okay. So you don't adulterate. It's unadulterated basically. So you leave it open on your platform. You leave it open for the brand to do what they want to do. So there is interaction. So does that mean the brand has authorized access to the site and can fill it up?
To part of the site, yes.
Somebody's got to go to them. Someone's got to talk to them and say, look, would you like to come onto here? This is our concept. This is what we do. And this is how we're going to promote it, etc. This is your store.
Yep. Here are the keys.
Here's the keys. Yeah. In a digital sense.
Yep.
And fill it up.
Yep.
So they have to populate the site.
Yep.
Hilton's got he wants to say something, but should we allow him to speak or not? Not yet.
There's one thing I want to add. I want to say to that. I think what for me the sign of success, the measure of success in that, and that's obviously a part of the business, is that brand trust and brands wanting to work with us.
They trust you.
Yes. Yeah. Our goal is to be the most trusted partner for brands. That's what we set out to achieve.
That's good. Partner for brands. Yep. So you are partnering with brands.
We're
partnering with brands in a digital way.
Yep. When everything that we do, we ask ourselves the question first: what are the brands going to think of this business decision that we make? We really challenge ourselves, and often we're asking brands, what do you think if we do this? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be not good? Is this aligned with what you want? But for me, the most satisfying thing to hear is, obviously I've been involved in a lot of brand presentations, pitching the proposition to brands, is at the end of the meeting, and it's happened many times when we get, this is really refreshing, this is what we want to hear, and this is the type of business that we want to work with. And that to me says, okay, I think we've got something right.
So I get the business model thinking. I actually want to come back to you. I want to park it, but I do want to come back to it. How you fill in your website, your proposition, how you actually get people to be attracted to what you're proposing, to give you the inventory to sell to the consumer ultimately. But I want to park it and come back to it. Hilton, do you think that is a complete and accurate description of the model?
I think.
Did I get the full bottle there?
No, I think there's elements that are probably missing, and I'm just sitting here.
You'll never say yes.
No. The reason I'm sitting here listening to what you would hear, and I think there are pieces that probably we're trying to cram this in which would, Justin, I'm sure, would be a 2-hour presentation, an hour into 5 minutes. And I think one of the things that I was listening to, the thing that is so appealing.
I thought you did a fucking great job. I understand. Come on, tell me about it. Come on, tell me.
I can leave. I can leave.
No.
I can go.
No, we want you to stay. We want you to stay.
No, I think it's the thing that really would be very attractive to brands is the company they sit in. That they've been very selective as to the brands that they've brought on, and
you mean the other brands?
The other brands. So they've been successful in bringing on over 300 brands, and the reason they've been successful is they've pitched it, number one, in a premium way to sell outlet, and number two is the brand alignment is very good. So you're not sitting with, I'm going to call them poor brands or brands that are just don't have any brand equity in the market. And I think that's good. And the other thing which I
Can I just stop there? Yeah. What does brand equity mean in the market? Is it the DOMS market? And what is the DOMS market? How does that work?
Justin, you can answer that. Yeah.
What is poor brand equity? Poor brand equity, and it doesn't matter what it looks like or are you proud to wear that brand?
But how do you determine that? How does one determine that?
Well, I don't think one can determine that, but the market can certainly determine
that. Well, how do you
that.
know the market's determined that? So what are the signs?
We know what people are searching for. We know where the demand is, and we know what brands are relevant at any point in time. That changes, of course.
Okay. So when you say you know what people are searching, so do you do some analytics, or do you have someone in your organisation do some computational informatics or analytics at least? What resonates, where the searches are going, what people are largely interested in?
Yeah. I mean, there's many ways you can find this information. You look on the street and you can see it. Social media, I'm not the one to do it, but somebody trawls through social media and sees what is relevant, what are people asking for. There's a whole lot in Google, of course, that you can gain. What are the brands what are the key brands that people are searching for? There's 1,000,001 places that you can find it. It's just bringing it all together and understanding.
There's analytics around data analytics.
Some of it's data and some of it's anecdotal.
Yeah, I understand that. But the old days, we would walk through, somewhere cool, like in the old days. Double Bay was in the mid '80s. I would have gone and said, "Shit, that guy's got Reeboks, and what the hell is that?" And then everyone would have started doing a bit of talking around, and people would have said, "Well, this is the coolest thing in the world at the moment." But you got to get it. There's brand equity, and I probably would have gone and bought them myself. In fact, I did. So, but what you're doing today is that plus old school plus the proper analytics around the data. You've got dudes in your business who do that work. And they come up and they say, this is the brand equity associated with that particular brand who you're going to go and pitch to, or you might haven't gone to, but you should go and pitch to them and get them up on the site. Yeah,
and there's nothing quantifiable there. I mean, it's a conversation. Is this a brand that we think aligns with the brands that we've got?
Yep.
And then just to answer your question about brand equity, what is it? My view is the brands that have brand equity are the brands that continue with a slow and steady growth, and the ones that don't, there's a lot of brands that do it. They thrash their brands, they sell it anywhere and everywhere, and then when you see the up and then the decline as quickly as the incline was.
Okay, that's very interesting. So let's say there's a brand that your organisation has identified as a brand that's not currently on the dom.com. You decide you're going to go to pitch to them, put them on your shelf, digital
shelf, yeah. You can fit much more in a digital shelf.
100%. It's bigger than any of the biggest Woolworths and Coles in the country. It's because it's effectively infinite. It's as big as you want to make it. How do you go about that? Like what's the process of getting someone to join your movement?
We would we would have to make our assumptions before we go in, but we look at what do we think is going to be most important to that brand and kind of tell.
How do you find the person? Do you reach out to them on LinkedIn, or how do you get to them?
Yes, there's a lot of LinkedIn. There's a lot of cold approaches. Retail is a small community. There's obviously he's got a big network, and all the people that we've brought into the business have networks as well. So we just reach out and see who's prepared to hear us.
By whatever method.
Whatever, yeah.
But you use everything.
Everything, yeah.
There's
LinkedIn,
no special
phone call, email. No. There's no one size fits all. Definitely not.
Who do you try to get in front of? Do you try to get in front of the head of marketing or the head of distribution or the CEO?
It depends on the business. I always like the CEO or the person running it. I think for me is always the best because they can look at the business holistically and not just. And I don't want to be taken the wrong way, but you talk to individuals that are in a department and they have very key, very focused KPIs or objectives for their department. For example, a merchandiser, right? One of their KPIs might be their closing stock at the end of the season. They could go. There are many means through which they could achieve that, and they could go and sell their stock for 10 cents in the dollar and through a platform that's going to damage their brand, but their KPI is closing
Have
stock.
zero closing stock.
Well, whatever. No, a number.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
But
they
if
don't
they
want
got
excess
too much?
stock. If they've got too much, their KPI is, let's call
Just
it $1 million.
fucking get rid of it.
Yeah, you must have a closing stock of $1 million. That's your KPI. That their motivation is to get to that number.
Yeah.
Their motivation is not to think
It's
about
short-sighted.
Correct. What's important for the brand, not just today, but tomorrow and the day after
Yep.
and the day after. And that's why I think if we can talk to a CEO or general manager, whoever it is, and this isn't everybody in that role. I mean, this is just one example,
It
but
can
somebody who can understand holistically what we're trying to do. And a part of it is we're not going out there and saying we're going to solve today's problem today. Certainly not. We're saying, come along for the journey. This is what we're doing. We want you to believe in what we're doing, and this is the future for us. We want to create the future of that outlet business. Come along for the ride. We're making it really easy for you. So part of our proposition is we've partnered with an Australian tech platform called Marketplacer, and they've got the marketplace engine that connects into all of the ecosystems of the brands that we partner with. So it's really easy for brands to onboard and to join the DOM. It's really low maintenance. They don't need any resource. It just sort of happens. It's an extension of what they're doing on their site.
Yep.
And we're saying, join us now, and we're going to build in 2-3 years. We're going to create the future of outlet. We want to put pressure on. We want you to ask yourself the question: do you actually need physical outlet stores? Because they're expensive. That you're paying significant amounts in rent and wages and all these other overheads that you don't pay on the DOM. And that's our goal. That's where we want to get to.
What's the financial model? So how do you make quid out of it?
So we just charge a percentage of sales.
So whatever gets sold, you charge a percentage of it.
correct.
Okay. So you take clip, basically, as a percentage. So even if they want to sell for $10 or 90% discount, that's okay.
Yeah.
And just out of interest, a little curious, but is your marketplace? Who'd you say you use that provides the marketplace?
It's a business
software?
called Marketplacer.
Marketplacer.
Yeah.
So does Marketplacer effectively use the reskin and or white label the supplier's website? Is that what you're talking about?
No. So we've got our own site,
Yeah.
but they've got connectors that connect into each of the suppliers' sites, and we've got access, if they give us access, obviously, to all of their inventory, to their images, to their descriptions, and we just ingest it and pull it all through.
Okay, so so that's what I want to know. So you're effectively hoovering their stuff up,
With their permission, of course.
of course. Authority wouldn't work otherwise. But you're not scraping someone's website.
No.
You're hoovering up what they make available.
Yeah.
And in the format that they want it to be put together, and in the pricing, etc. You're price takers, not price makers.
Yep.
In relation to everyone's stock.
Yeah.
So and then, okay, let's talk about marketing. I mean, how do you market the dom.com?
Good question. A difficult question.
It's complex.
It is complex. I think at its core, I mean, we believe that we have created a proposition that customers understand. I always like to use the example. I'm not going to take Airbnb, for example. We're not trying to tell the customer, hey, you normally stay in hotels, but just totally change that and go stay in somebody's house.
So you're not trying to disrupt.
We're not. Well, no, not in that sense. We're saying
You're not trying to disrupt behavior.
Yeah, you like brands, you like discount. Here's the place to buy it. Here's the place to find that. It's convenient, it's elevated, it's inspiring, it's well put together, it's well curated. We want to be the destination where anybody who likes brands and likes product, whatever it might be, and we're not going to stick to fashion. We've already started to dip our toes into homewares, and we want to move into electronics and experiential and multiple other verticals. But our goal is to be that destination where the customer wants value, but they want credible value. We will be their first.
So, but how are you making me aware of that? What's your awareness program?
So we about to kick off our big brand awareness campaign, and it's just selling the proposition. You know, we come back to the beginning of how we got to the name and why we got to the name, Direct Outlet Mall.
Yep.
The proposition is really clear. There's not a lot of explaining that we need to do, and we just need to articulate that proposition in a way that relates to our customer, to tell them, hey, you like brands, you like discount. Here's the place to see it all. We've done lots of different tests, both offline, online. So at the moment, where we're up to, we are doing all optimizations. There's ongoing marketing that we are doing, but we're just testing and learning and pushing and pulling and see where we are getting the results. And then over the next few months, we will start to ramp up in those areas that we are seeing results.
Right. So you're at the pointy end now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is probably an end where it's going to be pretty expensive,
Mm-hmm.
potentially, because marketing is a cost. It's not a cheap thing.
It is.
And it's repetitive, and it's consistent, repetitive, and just lots of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you choose traditional mediums or you want to use digital mediums or both.
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of that broad appeal. We want to hit them from all angles. We don't want it to just be digital. And I think interesting is a lot of the digital channels at least are behaving in ways that are more similar to traditional.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because they get so fucking big, they control environments and they have to.
Totally. I mean, Facebook as an example, the big challenge for retailers now is not being able to actually attribute the investment they're putting into the sale. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to track where your dollars are. So they're just becoming now a digital billboard.
Yeah, once they were a cheap alternative, now they're an expensive.
Or not a cheap, but one that you could easily track. You could say, I'm putting in $1 and I'm getting.
It was cheap because you could stop.
Yeah, correct.
You could say, fuck, that's not working.
Correct.
Whereas if you go on a TV advertising program, you commit and you've got to pay. If you've done a shit ad, you're stuffed. You can't pull it. If you pull it, you still get charged. So it becomes expensive. What's the take-up? What's it looking like?
On the brand side, amazing. I mean, I think that's our biggest asset right now is we've got 300 leading brands and we've got 300 brands that have signed up and said, we believe in what you guys are doing.
That means you've done a great job on the pitch. Good.
Yeah. On the customer side, so part of the reason why we slowed our marketing or our go-to-market a little bit is we weren't getting the metrics that we wanted. So we took a step back and said, okay, well, what aren't we doing? Something that we're doing is not what the customer wants. And we have spent the last few months bringing on more brands that are relevant to the customer and a lot of effort and time in optimizing the site to get those metrics to where we are comfortable with what we think is a good base level and something that we can build on. So we took a step back. We started with some marketing in November and we just saw that the metrics that we're getting weren't right. Scaled back, took a step back, jumped right into it, optimized, brought more brands on. We've got those back to where we need, and now we're in a place where I think we're comfortable to just start to take it to the next level.
In 2022, what's your plan? What do you want to see? This time next year, or not this time? Towards the end of this year, what do you hope to get?
Well, that's a good question.
Which deserves a good answer.
I'm just trying to think if I give you a financial or what type
no,
of answer
probably not financial.
Yeah.
Just maybe give me a qualitative one, not a quantitative. Don't quantify something because that's probably not relevant to me. But qualitatively, I mean, what do you want to see in the next 12 months as a result of all the hard work, all the effort and the investment you're going to make for this year?
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously significant growth. I mean, we want to be doing 10 times what we're doing now.
Yep.
Which I think
you want a 10x, yep.
Yeah, which I think is very achievable, more than 10x actually. I would really love I think conversion is a really good metric because that tells us exactly what the customer's thinking when they come to the site. If the conversion's high, it means they're liking what they see. So there's some key conversion
You're talking
goals.
about from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel?
No. So how many people come on site, and of those, how many people actually transact?
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And then
so
also,
you're going to build these metrics? So
we've got these metrics, and those are the metrics that I was talking about before.
Yep.
That give you a really clear view of what the customer thinks of what you're doing. That's the main one. And obviously, we've got a pipeline of brands that we want to get on board, and there's a lot of brands that the big, powerful brands that will sit and wait and say when we think that you're doing what you say you're going to be doing, then we'll join. And I think if we can get to a point where we can build the trust of the brands around us, and we've got some really big, strong, powerful brands around us that can be advocates for us and will be advocates for us. They're advocates for the proposition, but actually advocates for the results.
The ones on the side, they're an advocate for you anyway, because they're on there, I better get on there too.
Yeah. But if we can get them to speak to our results as well, not just our proposition, but results, I think that's probably a good goal, something that we really I would really like to see by the end of this year.
Papa Bear? What didn't he not cover?
I think
are you happy with what he said?
No, I think in the end it all got articulated really well. The proposition.
Did that hurt?
No, again,
You feel good now?
Yeah,
But you feel better or what?
No, something's wrong.
I think on the metrics, and I know that on the what you want to achieve, and I think what you asked Justin, what does he want to see by the end of the year? And I think it is. I think it's that.
Well, he's asking you, what do you want to see there?
Yeah, no, but I'm saying that I feel. Yeah, I'm just validating that I think that it's very clear in their minds. Of course, financial is the big hurdle, and it's a number of customers, it's a number of stuff. So I think they've got pretty serious and significant goals to hit or targets to hit. but they're on track. And so, I'm quite proud, and I hope it works.
I think you did a fucking great job. You got a question for me?
I actually asked a question that I wanted to ask you. How do you shop?
How do I shop?
Yeah.
Depends what it is. So,
Can I give you an example?
Yeah, give me
Something
an
that's
example.
fresh from
Yeah.
me. Kitchen knife. You want to buy a kitchen knife?
yep.
How do you buy it?
I know the brand I like.
Yeah.
I only, if you're talking about sharp knives,
Yeah.
cutting knives.
Which brand can I ask?
It's a Japanese brand. I can't think of what the name of it is at the moment. But I only like I like a certain. The thing is, most people knows about it. I'm a knife freak. Okay, so I collect knives.
Okay.
And
So
I
so
actually
I
have
asked
a
the right
bloke called
question.
I have a guy
I didn't know
called
that, by the
DB
way.
Blades who makes my blades for me, and he makes them out of Damascus steel. So I'm very particular about the sort of steel I have, how it's been heated, how many layers of it there is, etc. And I'm really particular about the handle. I'm very particular how the handle's been attached to the blade as well. So I have a big collection of knives.
Is anybody allowed to touch your
It's a bit
knives?
fucking freaky, but I know. No one's allowed to touch my knives unless I allow them to. So, and in terms of a kitchen knife, a cutting knife, I'm very
So
keen on
these are not
Japanese.
kitchen knives.
Yeah.
No, the ones that you're talking about.
You can use them as kitchen knives, but when it comes to that was a bit of a preface.
Can I ask what else you might use them for, or is that for the next podcast?
Just collection.
Okay.
Just collection. I mean, it's a bit intimidating. My kids think it's a bit weird, but so Hilton, when a birthday's coming up or Christmas coming up, and the kids say, "Oh fuck, it's hard to buy you a present."
Yeah.
So I thought, well, okay, this is many years ago. I thought, well, I'm just going to establish a situation where I just say, "Don't buy me anything, buy me a knife." And go on, and here are the websites or the Instagram pages I like to follow, where the knives come from.
Yep.
And this is the type of steel I like. So they can save up, buy me a $400 or $500 knife. I said, if you can afford it, you got 4 of you, 4 brothers, all putting together. I'm happy just to get one knife from all 4 of you. But every birthday, Father's Day or Christmas, just get me a fucking knife, okay? And or a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy for them. And that way I get what I fucking want. I
Knives
don't
and
get
whiskey.
shit.
That's dangerous.
Knife and whiskey. Well, look, if I had time, I could tell you some really fucking fucked up stories about, what I do at my farm with my sons when we're drinking, and some of the weird shit that I've dragged them through the forest in the pitch black when I've gone down with night goggles on and left them in the middle of the forest, like when they were 15, 16 years of age and stuff like that. And bolted and left them there on a night when there's no full moon, so that just to see whether they can make their way back to the main house. So you can imagine the sort of stuff that's going through my mind and their mind. But we don't have time to talk about that. I've really appreciated this conversation. I actually like the dynamic between the two. I think I'll be honest with you, Hilton. I think Justin is very polished. So good job. The apple doesn't drop far from the tree, but he's his own man. So well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be on the show.
Thank you.